Peace, this is Casabez again with another episode of The Black Present. I'll be talking today about traditional African kingships. And again, we're talking about the Black Present. We're not talking about the African kingdoms of antiquity. Um, we're talking about the present African kingships that are still surviving right now today. I want to start by saying that, I've heard many times that in Africa we were kings and queens, people who now we identify ourselves as Africans, as conscious, as, like we say nowadays, woke people. And we say that we call each other king, we call each other queen. And, you know, it's, uh, it's said with the sense of, empowerment. We're trying to empower each other. We're trying to support each other, uplift each other with positive language, and I get it. I really get it. Because ultimately, what we're trying to do is, we're trying to remember a time and get ourselves back in the mind frame of a time where we determined our own destiny, where our destiny as black people is not determined by white culture, white society, white principles, white government, and so on and so on. We're trying to remember a time when our ancestors um, lived in societies that supported each other and was for the benefit of all human beings within that society. We're trying to remember that, and we're trying to get back to that. And so um, that's why I think it's just important for us to realize, our greatness is not just in the past. We still have access to the present black kings and queens of the world today. And those kings and queens are not, well, nowadays when we think of a king, we think of royalty. Um, we're thinking about someone lounging out on a couch or like on some kind of a large sofa type thing with maidens feeding him grapes by hand and waving big grape leaves to fan him in the heat and to brush away all the flies and so on and so on. Um, Living a life of luxury and decadence, get whatever you want, do whatever you want, as long as you can manage to find a way to trick the people or force the people to submit to you, then you can be king until someone bigger than you, comes and overthrows you. That's, maybe what you might call the modern version of a king. That's what you might call the version of a king that we hear about in, Louis the 14th and, of France or Henry VIII or Julius Caesar or Alexander the Great, so on and so on and so on. We hear about all this. Um, but when it comes to the African version of the king, the model uh, is very different because within African, or I'm using the word African because that's the word that we know nowadays, but really, uh, if I could say a much more appropriate term would be Kemetic, which just means black anyway. When it comes to black kings and queens, the idea of a kingdom, the idea of a society really, whatever you want to call it, if you want to call it a clan, you want to call it a tribe, you want to call it a kingdom, uh, an empire, whatever you call it, whatever word you put there, it's English anyway. But whatever you put there, um, the group of people is coming together because we understand that this world that we live in is something that's bigger than us. It's something that's more powerful than us. It's something that imposes itself on us and it's challenging for us to understand and to function inside of. We come together with the idea that we need to work together to survive in this world. And beyond the idea of just merely surviving in this world. We also need to come together to understand the mystery of this world. Why it is that we came into life in the first place. Why it is we were born and came out of our mother's wombs. We woke up and all of a sudden we're here. What is the purpose of this life? What are we here to do? Who are the forces that are governing this world that make it so that, hey, the sun is rising on time every day, setting on time every day? That make it so you can plant a seed in the ground and 1,000 more seeds will grow from that one seed. How is this happening? It's because we look and we see higher powers at work. So how do we understand what those powers are? To connect with those powers. That's the purpose of a society. We're getting together to investigate the existence, to function best in it. And by the way, hey, this life, after this life is over, it's not over. We just transition, as we say, to another phase. And we're trying to understand all that. We're working together for that purpose. And so what you call a traditional king is the one who is in charge to ensure the stability of the society so that the whole social fabric can come together for that purpose. That's the reason. It's not for any, the post is not for personal ambitions to be met. It's not for the glory and the fame. Maybe you can say that comes with it sometimes. But also what comes with it is a lot of responsibility, a lot of suffering, a lot of blame being put on you because you're supposed to solve everybody's problems. Anyone can come to you with their problems. And you have to find a way. How to be fair, how to judge, and so on. So this is what our original kingdoms are about. And just so you know, they still exist. You can go right now today, buy your plane ticket, go over to Africa, and be sitting at the foot of a king and figure out how can I be of service. Because nowadays, let's face it, our modern version of patriotism, hey, everyone wants to be patriotic and have pride in where they come from and fight to defend it. But let's face it, these wars that we end up in for America, for trying to be patriotic or trying to serve our country, where is it getting us? Slavery and more slavery. So, we think we want something different than that. Let's serve something that's bigger than ourselves, a social fabric that's bigger than ourselves, which just happens to be the same thing that our ancestors are coming from, which just happens to be functioning with the purpose of serving us at the same time while we're serving it. We don't need any more of John F. Kennedy philosophy. That's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. If it's only a one-way street, the country always benefits. You don't have to think about your benefit. You don't benefit. We should stop, holding the illusion that we're benefiting something here in this society. We don't benefit. Because even our whatever fame, fortune, or money, or whatever, we die and lose all of that. And what are we left with? At the end of our lives, not much. So let's give our lives to something that's going to serve us and uplift us, to uphold our dignity and to elevate us spiritually, morally, philosophically, and at the same time feed us. Because, it's not the material and technological wealth or advancement that is what benefits us. It's what's inside. Our ancestors understood that. Our ancestors have been focusing on cultivating that. That's why you go to humble villages and you don't see modern amenities. We don't need it. You see, we're over here destroying the world for that. So let's give ourselves to a social fabric that's made to benefit us. Yeah, we have kings and queens that exist, African royalty that exists. We don't have to call ourselves a king and queen to uplift ourselves. We uplift ourselves by giving ourselves back to where our ancestors come from. That's how we uplift ourselves, because we need help. It's not something you can do by yourself. So I'm giving this message because, hey, at least you can know now. If you didn't know before, you can know now that it's there. Then once you know that it's there, all it takes now is the will to plan your escape, the will to go get it, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes. Even if you have to prepare just for your children to be able to get there, just work towards that, because hey, our ancestors would have given anything. They survived so that we would have the chance to go back. So now we have the chance to go back. And it just so happens that what we come from somehow is still surviving. Once again, I have to just acknowledge and give gratitude to my spiritual master, Neb Nabalumo Sumorodini Big, for opening this path for me to return home. My life will always be, in your debt. And for that reason, at your service as well. And so that's what I'm working towards. I don't have any other reason to be up here talking to you. It's my wish that you guys take some inspiration from that. Try to see how you can reconnect with our roots. And that's all. Peace.